All right. Well, welcome to Roots of Reality Experiences. Today I'm joined by Dr. Vijoy Sahay, who is the former head of the Department of Anthropology at Allahabad University in India. His research has focused primarily on the vulnerable tribes in India, specifically on the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Additionally, Dr. Sahay is the editor-in-chief of the internationally renowned anthropological research journal, the Oriental Anthropologist, and is the author of several books and articles. So Dr. Sahay, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
So when did you first get interested in anthropology?
Yes, very interesting. Because I was in my teenage, when I was in school, one of our neighbors came to our house with certain equipments. In anthropology, we call it anthropometer, sliding caliper, spreading caliper. These were the instruments and with which he was taking the measurement of some of our family members. I asked him simply as a young boy, I asked him what is this all about? He said that he was doing anthropology, MA in anthropology, and it was a part of their practical assignment. Because in anthropology, we have social cultural anthropology, we have biological anthropology. Earlier, it was called physical anthropology, then archaeological anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. These are the four main branches. So he was taking measurement as a assignment, was a part of his practical examination. Then he said that this was in anthropology. Now, this word itself, anthropology, when I never knew, I never heard, it attracted my attention, and I decided that sometime when I entered in the colleges, then I will certainly offer anthropology, and I did offer. And this is how, at that time, when he told me about anthropology, I never asked him what was it all about. Nor did I knew anything about anthropology, but the word itself appeared to be very pleasing to my ear, I can say. And I was so much attracted that I was waiting just to pass out my matriculation examination and enter into the college. And at the first instance, I offered anthropology. This is how I entered into anthropology, and I have no regrets because I have enjoyed doing anthropology very much.
That's great.
Especially my supervisor, Professor L.P. Vidyarthi, he was very committed to the discipline. And you'll be surprised to know that as early as in 1970-71, almost 52 years back, the first visit to Andaman I had made with him, and we had done some pilot survey on the tribes of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So we have visited Andaman also, then Nicobar also. Of course, thereafter, I went to Andaman again in 1974-75 and continuously stayed there for 13 months in different islands. Yeah. That was how I got initiated in anthropology, I should say, because in this book, I have written my initiation into the discipline that took place in the island of Chaura in the Nicobar. You see the map, a very small island, 2.8 square kilometers only, but the most orthodox, the most inhospitable, at the same time, the most inaccessible it was then during the mid-1970s. Now things have greatly changed there because no ship ever went there. You had to go by canoe, primitive type of canoe. 14 nautical miles you had to cover from the island of Teresa to the island of Chaura. And the Chaurians, the problem was they believed that even a particle of sand from outside, if it is brought to their island, the experience of the devil would become angry, and that will cause death and disease in the island. So they didn't allow anything in those days. But fortunately, I went there. there was only one man, one Mr. Abednego, who was from Car Nicobar. I had just taken him with me as my interpreter. So the information I collected through interpreter, of course, but I stayed there for 3.5 months. And I've written in my book that the day I was leaving the island, only the sick persons or the children might have stayed in their huts. Otherwise, the population was very small, 2,600 something population was there. But almost 2,000 people must have come along the shore and to see me off. They gave me a lot of presentations. And I remember 9 live chickens also they had given me.
Wow.
As presentation. So that was a very good experience in the island of Chowra, where because I remember that when in Calcutta, I went to the Anthropological Survey of India office, and then in Port Blair also there is one office of the Anthropological Survey of India. And when I told the people, I mean those who had worked earlier in Andaman, I told them that I want to go to Chowra Island. Their first reaction, I have written in my book also, you want to commit suicide or you want to die? This is what. So it was not my adventure. It was not because of my adventure, I must say.
Yeah.
It was because my topic was nature, man, spirit complex in the Nicobar archipelago.
Yeah.
This was the topic. So in order to understand the crux of their spirit world, I had to go to Chowra Island. Chowra is something which will take, I mean, I can see, they were supposed to be, everybody feared a Chowrian, a man from Chowra. He was feared by all the other islands because the land itself was called the land of wizard. Every Chowrian was supposed to be a wizard. The people of other islands believed that a Chowrian can change the direction of the wind and the wave.
Wow.
They were the best. They were the best navigators in the whole of Nicobar Islands, because Nicobar Islands, there are 19 islands and 12 are inhabited, the rest are uninhabited. So those islands which are inhabited, so people there believed that Chowrians can change the direction of the wind and the wave. I've written all these things and explained that why did they believe so. The island itself, all around the island, so much of coral reef was there that no ship ever went there. So I had to travel by canoe from the island of Teresa and then went there. Under such circumstances, if you do field work, I think I had that very taste of anthropology. That discipline.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, because in one of the books has been written, ethnographic researches by R.F. Allen, writer's name is. He has written that the success of an anthropologist doesn't depend upon the amount of data that he brings from the field, but the amount of help and cooperation that he receives from the people there. Because as long as an anthropologist stays in the field, the people under whom he studies, they should accept him as a social person. Yeah. So my experiences in the island of Chowra was very good. Equally good was even in the Nancowry group of islands. Nancowry group of islands. Because Nicobar, I'm telling about some of my work on the Nicobar. Why I'm telling you? Because when in 1970, when I went to Andaman and Nicobar with Professor L.P. Vidyarthi, my supervisor. In those days, I was a student. So I wanted to work among the Jarwa tribe. You must have been knowing, you know, Sentinelese very well because I heard you, Sentinelese. So Jarvas were also equally hostile in those days. So people in Port Blair, they told me that you can see a Jarva once in your lifetime. Either you kill them or they'll kill you. This
Wow.
was a common, yeah, in the Jarva. But later, in 1979, the first contact with the Jarva had taken place. And I was also there. But thereafter, they slipped inside the forest, you know. So I couldn't work among the Jarva. I'm telling something about the Andaman tribes, you know, because Andaman tribes are Negritos and Nicobar tribes are Mongoloids. You know it
Okay.
very well, must be. Yeah. And there are four tribes in Andamans. One is Andamanese, Great Andamanese, some people call them. Uh, Andamanese, then another Onge, third is the Jarva, and the fourth one is the Sentinelese. So Jarva and Sentinelese still to this day they don't allow anybody. And you must have heard about the American missionary who had gone Chow. What is
Yes.
his name?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Because
remember his name either, but I remember, yeah, they decided to go on some crazy adventure to try to
so
convert the Sentinelese, I guess. Yeah.
uh, so Andaman is the first, and who were the greatest in number. They were thousands in number. Hmm. So they were reduced in 1974 when I went there. Their number was only 24.
Wow.
Radically Brown, the British social anthropologist, he studied the Andamanese as early as in 1906 to 1908. He was in Andamans. He has written a book, The Andaman Islanders.
Yeah.
It's a voluminous about the Andamanese only about the Andamanese and about none. And in that book, he had already said, because they were then about, say, exactly 610 or something like that. And they all suffered from the venereal diseases and measles and everything. So he already predicted in his book that during the next 50 years, he thought that the tribe would become extinct. This was his, you can read the book Andaman Islanders, in which A.R. Radcliffe Brown has written all these things. Well, the tribes of Andamanese tribe became so, they got almost extinct. The reason was that the British in the government, they had opened a home. They call it Andamanese home, in order to befriend the people. In Port Blair, there is an island, Ross Island. They opened an Andamanese home, and the Andamanese were brought there, and they were given food and everything and gifts, and then they were left in the jungle again, or in the forest. But they were under the care of the prisoners, you know. Andaman was a penal settlement was there, and the most dreaded criminals from Indian whole of Indian subcontinent, they were sent as water transportation to Andaman. So those convicts, they looked after these Andamanese, you know, and they exploited sexually the Andamanese women and all these things. That all of them became very, uh, uh, I mean, their population began to decline. In 1974, I had the first glimpse of the Andamanese in Middle Andaman. There were about 18 or 19 people. All looked so feeble, so pale and sick. I've written in my book that there was a jetty, there was a small jetty in the Middle Andaman, where the ships, small ships coming and going, and a lot of commercial activities taking place there. And these 18 or 19 people were sitting at one place in the squatting position and looking after these things. And I thought that the son of the soils were these people who have been living here for more than 60,000 years. Their number has reduced to now 24. And the people who came to Andaman, not even say 100 years, and they are exploiting all the economy of the Andaman timber work and everything. So these things I have written in a book that I felt very sad, because those Andamanis in those days, they used to come to Port Blair, virtually begged. They lived in the Japanese bunkers that the Japanese had prepared during the Second World War. And this is how they lived, and they asked people for some opium, some drink, rum, etc. And then they returned to the Strait Island, where the government has even today kept them. That Strait Island is a very 5 some square kilometer area where these people have been kept by the government.
Yeah.
Now their population, of course, has increased. But how? That is also interesting. You don't find genetically, pure Andamanese, because the Bengali settlers have been settled in the whole of North, Middle, and South Andaman after the India's participation in 1948. The people from Bangladesh who came to India as refugees, they were given land in North, South, Middle Andaman. They have encroached their areas. So the present Andamanese, I have some photographs with me, and you'll be surprised. They don't look like pure Negrito racial stock. They are the mixtures of the Bengali settlers, some laborers. And this is how their population today, claimed by the government, is 54. But wow. I know that none of them know even their language, because the last lady who was senior Boaz, she was known as, she died in 2010. Thereafter, Andamanese language is also lost.
So in total, it sounds like there's several different tribes on the Andaman Islands, and I assume there's probably a few different tribes on the Nicobar Islands as well. Two tribes. Okay. So
the Nicobaris and the Shompe.
Okay. So what do these tribes understand about the outside world? Beyond their culture, what do they know about outside cultures?
See, I have worked on the Nicobaris, and Nicobaris are scattered in 12 islands. I'll first come to Nicobar, and then I'll come to Andaman. Okay. Every island has its own worldview. The people of every island, because Nicobar Islands are 12 islands. Geographically, we can divide them into 3 zones. North zone, Car Nicobar only. Central zone, a number of islands, Teresa, Bompoka, then Nankori, Kachab, Trinket, and Kamota. These 6 islands constitute the central zone. And then southern zone, there is, those are the islands which are inhabited. I'm taking the name of those islands only. Great Nicobar, Little Nicobar, Pulomilo, and Kondur. So geographically, we can divide them into 3 zones. But culturally or linguistically, they can be divided into 5. Car Nicobar has its own distinct culture. The island of Chaura, absolutely distinct culture. 14 nautical miles from Chaura are 2 islands, Teresa and Bompoka. They have a different language, different culture. Nankori group has got 4 islands. Nankori, Kamota, Trinket and Kacha. They have a distinct dialect and distinct, largely distinct culture also. And the people of the southern islands, Pulomilo, Kondul, Great Nicobar and Little Nicobar, they have distinct language and culture. So, Nicobarese people, right from the beginning, they have been very much interacting with the outside world.
Okay.
The Nicobarese only the Nicobarese. And they are the most flourishing tribe. Their population must be now about 30,000 approximately. And the pressure on the Nicobarese land is so much that they have been settled in Little Andaman also, and many people have come to Port Blair also. So Nicobarese people were always, they have been very hospitable. And whenever any ship went there, they approached them on their canoe and exchange of coconut, because that is land of coconut also. So they had, from the beginning, that people from outside, they came by ship, and this is how they knew. As far as Shompen is concerned, in the Great Nicobar, that is a small population, not more than 200, I hope. Not more than 200. So they were living, still now they are living in Great Nicobar on the western coast. So in their worldview also, people, knew that there are people outside who come to contact, but they were very shy and they kept themselves inside the jungle. As far as Andaman is concerned, you find the mention by Ptolemy, by Marco Polo, and all these ancient travelers also. Rather, Marco Polo has given something very exaggerated account. If you read his book, then you find he says that the people of Andaman are like beasts, and whenever they find anyone, they kill them and eat the flesh. This type of description is there, which is absolutely wrong. Of course, he didn't have the first, he must have passed by, because he was a great explorer and traveler. So he must have passed by. But that description is absolute, because cannibalism has never been in Andaman Nicobar.
Yeah.
There is evidence of cannibalism. Of course, they were hostile, they didn't want. So they were aware that people outside, they also live. But if you talk about the exact worldview, because see, during the Second World War, especially the flights coming and aeroplane and everything, so they have been aware, that people have been outside, but to speak everything about their worldview exactly, it needs an in-depth study to live with them and to understand them. And unfortunately, I have not intensively worked among the tribes of Andaman. So they are aware, or they have been aware from the beginning, that people are there outside, but their worldview exactly, I think I should not say, because I have not worked among the tribes of Andaman.
Sure.
I have not done participant observation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I told you that in Andaman there are 4 tribes, and Andamanese came in contact with the outside world, and they are at the verge of extinction. Andamanese, who were thousands in number, and they lived in all the great North Andaman, Middle Andaman, and South Andaman. The Onge, their population has become stagnant. When I was working there, they were 96 in number. And even today, if you see the population, you will not find more than 100, hardly 100. So their population has become stagnant. they are separately kept in Dugong Creek. There is a place, Dugong Creek. There they have been settled. Now, why they became so indolent, lazy, and they have almost given up their hunting and gathering economy? Because they are absolutely dependent upon the ration and everything being provided to them by the government. A primary school has also been opened there, but none of the Onges has ever done any, even school also, education has not been, none of them has ever completed.
Okay.
And they just wait for the ship to come, and the government officials will come. They give them ration and clothes and all the necessities, things, Why they have also given up this hunting and gathering economy? There are two reasons also. There in their area also, the refugees who came from East Bengal after the partition, they have been given that. So these refugees have air guns, they have some better implements for hunting, and they go inside and they're poaching around their areas. So naturally, and these are still with their bows and arrows and spears. Now they have almost given up. They of course go to the jungle to collect honey that they collect. But hunting and gathering economy, they are not dependent upon, despite living in little Andaman. Jarwas, till now, they are doing hunting and gathering. But I don't suppose that it will be not, the days are not far off that they may also become dependent upon the government I mean, what do you call, doles, I call it better. Because they are now taking rice and everything, and they come to the hospitals, they live there. I asked some of the Jarwas, which food do you enjoy? Do you enjoy that you get in the forest by hunting and gathering roots and fruits, or this meal? And they said that no, they enjoy rice and other things, So this way, Jarwa also is becoming dependent upon the government. Andamanis have already become. Last, the Sentinels, they have survived because they are still hostile. Although in one of my editorials in my journal, the Oriental Anthropologist, I have questioned that whether they are hostile or we have been hostile against them. Because we have this I have written very well, that they are not hostile, but we have been hostile. We have encroached their land. They have never encroached ours. That's a different thing, But the Andamanis became docile, and they were the first to get, their population decline. Second is the Onge. They are also the same fate. Jarwa were hostile as long as they lived there. But now they have also come in contact with the outside world. Very well, they have come into contact with the out. You go to Andaman, go to any hospital in the south or middle Andaman, you will find some Jarwas. And for them, there is separate wards where only the Jarwas are treated. You can find them. But Sentinels, of course, you cannot. So this contact, when it becomes, then I've heard you speaking in that brief isolated tribes, that how they impacted by the diseases and all the ills of the civilization. That is there. That is there. And that is what I'm afraid, if the Sentinels also come in contact, they will also follow the suit, and they will also become so. This is a question which has to be seriously taken, and adequate measures have to be taken to protect their life and culture, what you call it,
Yeah.
But the problem is there. I tell you, uh, there is a contradiction between development and change. How I'm telling you, try to understand it. If we want any sort of development, we have to introduce technology.
Hmm.
The moment you introduce the technology, it will have subsequent effect on their social structure as well as belief system. So change is inevitable. The moment technology is introduced, the change is inevitable.
Yeah.
There would be the social structure also, as well as in their belief system, religion, whatever you call it. Now the problem is that I've seen in the mainland of India, the tribal leaders, and at the same time, the politicians and all, they want to save the tribal culture on the one hand, and on the other hand, they also want development.
Hmm.
How can it be possible?
Yeah.
How can it? At most, you can give a positive direction to the change such a planning is to be made. I tell you, I was one of the members of a very powerful committee constituted by the Ministry of Forest and Environment, Government of India. We were 5 members, one from all scientists were there. Among the anthropologists, I was only there. So there was a committee constituted by the Supreme Court. If you read Andaman, that committee is called Shekhar Singh Committee Report. And Shekhar Singh had honestly given that how this fragile ecology was being destroyed. And on the basis of his report, Supreme Court ordered a number of things. The first thing, no cutting of woods, no deforestation should be done, and all sorts of restrictions Supreme Court imposed upon it, even to the extent that ATR, Andaman Trunk Road, which passes through the Jarwa area, that should also be closed. That was the verdict of the Supreme Court. Till this date, nothing has come up. So after this, a new committee was to examine the feasibility of Shekhar Singh committee report, whether it is possible or not. Because there was a lot of hue and cry in Andaman that the forest cannot be cut down, the timber tycoons were there, they were also disturbed, and all this political brouhaha took place there.
Yeah.
So we went there. Then it so happened that the chairman of the committee was an environmentalist from Delhi University. I found him in favor of the government and writing, I have a very strong, I had written a note of dissension that is still there in my computer. If I know your email ID, I can send it to you.
Yeah.
That was quoted by Survival International also. And I remember Survival International also contacted me and appreciated that strong note of dissension. Then again, there was a conference on the Jarwa itself, Jarwa. Then I said that, look, if you want the people to survive, then you have to develop a leadership from among the people only who will take care of it. I gave them the example of the Nicobaris. Nicobar, during the 19th century, that was not, of course, hostile, but they lived absolutely naked and they were exploited by the traders from Malaysia and Burma. They visited, and for one piece of banyan or one piece of cloth, they took hundreds and thousands of coconuts.
Wow.
This is how Yeah, there are instances because it is very interesting. I've written in a book that the Nicobaris do not wear clothes, but they are statues and spirits, so they decorate them with their clothes, For that reason, they traded for the clothes. Hundreds and thousands of coconuts they used to give them. This is how they exploited. Um, so, what I was saying about Huh. I told in that conference that look, if you really want, then what happened in Nicobar that should be initiated in Andaman also. What happened in Nicobar was that in 1893, before that, for 200 years, different missionaries from Europe, they tried to convert to the people. They wanted to proselytize the Nicobaris, but they failed because of the fatal climatic conditions. They could not. One missionary from South India, V. Solomon, his name. In 1893, he comes to Nicobar, Car Nicobar, which was very safe to and accessible. Picked up a bunch of boys, young boys from Nicobar, took them to Burma, Myanmar, today Myanmar, and got them admitted into school in a missionary. Then the 13 students he had taken, when they came, one of them became the architect of the modern Nicobar, Bishop John Richardson. So this is an example that you take the people and educate them properly, give them the modern education, and from among them only the leadership would emerge who will take care of his community, as it has been done by Bishop John Richardson in the whole of Nicobar. He's called the architect of modern Nicobar. Now the Jarvas are 203 boys. I suggested take them to the best of schools in India, give them education, and whenever the holidays are there, vacations are there, bring them and let them live with their own community, And this is how, if it is done, then only some betterment of the people could be done. Otherwise, what happens with the Ongis? A primary school has been opened, and a student, class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then again he is admitted in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of the articles which I wrote in Port Blair as early as in 1979, still I have the copy of that. One of the Ongi boys, crores of rupees are spent by the government of India for the protection of these tribes. But one of the boys, Ongi boys, was begging along the street of Port Blair. I've seen him, I've met him, I talked to him.
Yeah.
And in the name of education, he has learned only slangs in Hindi. He has died. His name was Ramu. He was called Ramu by name. Now, what is the use of such an education? So why not make them compatible? You have to, we are in the 21st century and they are also our citizens. They have also equal right of getting education and they are lacking far behind. So this has to be taken, and thorough education should be given to them. And then most of the times in the vacations, these boys should be allowed to live with their parents in the jungle and the forest, no problem.
Yeah.
And these people will ultimately bring some change in their own community. Otherwise, we or the government, howsoever that we have been doing for the last 72 years, after independence, we have been taking care of Ongis. What has happened? No development, no nothing like that. Population has become stagnant, and Andamanis were getting declined. I mean, they are around 54 in number, and that too because of the admixture of different people, not purely Andamanis. They were only 24 in number. How could they multiply unless the outside influence was there?
Yeah.
So this has to be done about all the isolated people, I say. Forget that their culture will change. Culture is always subject to change. Culture is always subject to change. So why not give them the best of the education and live in the 21st century, and they will bring very fast change among the community, as the Nicobaris have done. You go to Nicobar and you will be surprised to see the change. But this philosophy that on the one hand we have to protect the culture. Why should we protect it? Culture is such a thing which cannot be protected. And culture change, I can, as an anthropologist, very authentically say, any change in culture is only because of technology. Only because of technology. You see, if you divide man's existence in 100 days, since the Pleistocene period, from where we get the evidences in stone tools. So since the Pleistocene period till this 2022, if you consider this to be 100 days, 97 days, and prepare a graph of development, you'll find 97 days man has lived as hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
All of Paleolithic, the lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, upper Paleolithic, whole of Mesolithic, and almost whole of Neolithic also, they lived. So, Neolithic period, we call it the first revolution that we domesticated the plant. And then comes James Watt. James Watt, who invented, we can say, our steam engine. That was the first time that another source of energy we started using. And now the graph, because of technology, is going vertically 90 degree up, and how the society has changed within the last few hundred years, whereas millions of years have passed through such. So it's technology which will bring the change. We cannot deprive them of the benefits of the technology. This is unjust, I think.
Yeah.
So this is unjust, I think. So you have to, if you want them to integrate with the modern world, you can say, then education is the only thing, and the best of education, scientific education, and everything, and that will bring change in the society. And at least the people will survive. Nicobaris are a flourishing tribe. If you see the census reports, then we find that till 1921, their number was only, supposing, 10,000, but now they are more than 30,000. How this? Because of education, health, and everything they started receiving. And this is how they have been protected. It is very dangerous situation, some of the tribes, like the Sentinelese. Even the Jarvas, I am most afraid of the Jarvas. Sentinelese will remain safe as long as they are hostile. This is true. The day they become hostile, and then the problem will start.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid about the Jarvas. I'm afraid about the Jarvas. I have been to 9 times altogether to Andaman and Nicobar Islands. I have been to 9 times there. And yet again, book I want to write on Andaman, for which sooner or later I'll be going there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I guess this is kind of the big question that anthropologists are trying to figure out all the time. What's the best way to, handle these tribes, especially if they're eventually coming into contact with other people, and how that can affect them. What's the best way for them to handle that interaction for the foreseeable future? Because we see tribes historically, obviously, struggle all the time when they come into contact with other people because of that cultural exchange, which can, basically they take one culture and make it disappear if it, as it has happened often. But your idea of taking just some people, giving some people the opportunity to get educated and come back to their tribe, to preserve their culture while at the same time allowing these people to modernize it, to modernize their society and use modern technology. That's a really interesting idea because it does give that combination of protection, but also, they're interacting with the outside world. So how do you mitigate that from destroying their culture while allowing them to also benefit from that interaction at the same time? It's really interesting because I guess it's kind of you have to have a very careful balance of how to manage
that
it.
balance. Yeah, it has to be done very carefully. And I tell you that I sometimes wonder, even the anthropologists also say that no, their culture will be destroyed. What destroyed? Culture will change.
Yeah.
Give a positive change, not a negative one. And for that, very, very adequate care has to be taken. And forget that outside agencies will protect them and their culture. I don't suppose this. Even the government won't be able to at least protect their culture. Education will do. Now, in Andaman, last time when I went to Andaman, it was the conference and they had invited me. I went there. I saw some young Andamanese boys and girls. Of course, there was no racial purity of Negrito. But then I was happy to see that they were well educated, college education they had got, and they are the people who will become the leader of their own community. And they will think about always the betterment of their community. We think from outside, we try to import, we try to invest money, we plan everything, to do this and that, But I have my anthropological experiences in not only Andaman and Nicobar Islands, but even in the whole of central India. I've been to Northeast also. I find that this type of development is not properly, is not doing good to the people themselves. Not good for them.
Yeah.
There has to be some different approach. And this can be, of course, anthropology will help. But theoretically, what I try to understand is that any change in subsistence technology will bring subsequent change in the social structures as well as the belief system of the people. There's social structure that will change, because of technology, and then the belief system will. See, the Jarwas, as long as they lived in jungle, whenever they got sick, they had no other option but to resort to the medicine man.
Yeah.
But resort to the medicine man. But now I tell you that I have met so many Jarwas in the jungle. Sorry, in the hospital. In the hospital. So they are coming, they are getting modern facilities, good food and everything. So technology is the most important thing which will bring change, but that has to be applied very cautiously and slowly.
Yeah.
Not abruptly, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like over time, and I guess, your experiences kind of suggest that as well, that tribes will eventually come into contact with the outside world, and you can't really prevent that from happening. They eventually will come into contact, as they've always have historically. And so being prepared for that contact by giving them the ability to adapt without, having their whole culture destroyed is kind of the key to success, I suppose.
Yeah. I gave you the example, Nicobarese, how they lived before. And after only 13 young boys he had picked up, Vijoy Sahay. and took them, and they got them thoroughly educated, brought them, and all those people became the leaders of the Nicobar society, and the best was the Bishop John Richardson. And I met him. I met Bishop John Richardson. 2 times I met him. One in 1970, when I had gone with Professor Vidyarthi, my supervisor, as an excursion trip, not as a pilot survey. And then during my PhD, I met him several times. I did have a talk with him. It was very interesting. I have written in my book that how I interacted with him, because when I came to know that I had to go to Chowra Island, then I came to know that there is only one person in Car Nicobar who knows Chowra language, because he was there to spread Christianity on behalf of the bishop. He was sent to proselytize the people. But the people, he stayed there for 3 years, as I was told, but he could not then proselytize. Today now, Chaurians are Christians, and no problem, they are now developing that. So that's a different issue. But yeah, I met the bishop and I requested him that why not you tell Abednego to accompany me to Chowra. Then Abednego went with me and he was my interpreter.
Interesting. Okay. So you briefly mentioned about the aspect of all the different ways these tribes are vulnerable and things like disease. To what extent, as an anthropologist, do you think climate change affects these tribes?
Climate change.
Yeah. No. Does it have any impact at all on the sort of the lifestyle of these tribes, or does it affect anything at all in that area of the world, in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, or is it just not a factor at all?
No. See, after 27 years of my PhD, when I went to Nicobar, I have written in my book, I was as surprised to see the changes as you must be knowing the story, Rip Van Winkle, American short story. It was written in 1819 by Washington Irving, that how a young boy who was grazing his cattle went to a hill and entered, and after 20 years he came, he saw the changes. So likewise, I was also surprised to see the changes in the Nicobar. And that was because of the technology. See, a place where no ship was ever going, only one had to go by canoe. And so many ferry boats were running to Chowra Island. I went to Chowra Island.
Yeah.
After 27 years. So it was very much changed. So they are getting exposed to the modern means of communication. And that will certainly bring change in their lifestyle, in their thinking, in their social structure. See, best example is the Nicobar. It was wonderful. A small nuclear family, wife, husband, married, children. And then a giant family was there. The head of the nuclear family was known, well, they all called captain. Captain, this word they learned from the ships that passed through the Nicobar Islands earlier. So the captain by thumb, he is the captain of the ship, then captain of this community this is how this word captain has entered into Nicobarese dictionary. And there is first captain, second captain, third captain, and then chief of the captain of the entire island. So this sort of beautifully their social organization is there. But now, of course, such joint families have been splitting there because many Nicobaris are working in the mainland. They are working in the port there. So that is a natural process that once you are exposed to the outside world, modernization, industrialization, urbanization, so this is going to affect your family structure, your social structure, and your belief system, etc., etc. So that has to be accepted. That has to be accepted by everyone, not only anthropologists, because the fear is that it should not happen what happened with the Andamanis or the Andamanis. Because I told you that Ratcliffe Brown had already said that after years, such and such things. I've quoted in my book also. And when I had met the Andamanis, now I'm surprised to see, but then if you see the Andamanis, I'm not happy with the situation. It is only the Bengali settlers and the laborers who mixed up with the Andamanis women somehow, and then it started increasing the population. This is what has happened with the Andamanis.
Sure.
Even in my mobile, some photographs of my last visit are there. When you see that Negritos, you compare the Jarwa, the Onge and the Sentinelese photographs and that of the Andamanis, you'll find a lot of difference. So that way we can say that the Andamanis have now, because of this admixture, they have increased their population. But they were absolutely they had become at the verge of extinction. I've seen them. I've seen them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think in the future will like environmental global warming impact the tribes at all?
Yes. We are more affected by the global warming and everything because we are living in the world of technology. So impact easily feel. But since there have been those tribes, most of them, those who are living inside the jungle, because there also is a tropical forest. Andaman also, the same zone it is. So naturally, I wouldn't say that the tribes of Andamans, I don't think that they are being affected by the global warming.
Okay.
I think so. Interestingly, when the tsunami took place, then some journalists and some anthropologists also were under impression that the Jarwas or the Sentinelese or the Andaman tribes, I mean those living in the forest, they had some premonition about this catastrophe of tsunami because they could knew their indigenous knowledge. This is all rubbish, I tell you. How could it be possible?
Right.
Even in 20, we cannot predict the earthquake or volcano or tsunami. So this was all, but then there was a newspaper and even some anthropologists know they were able to understand, so they went to the safer side. So such things are there that sometimes we, because after tsunami, when I went to Andaman, it is only the flat islands like Nicobar, Trinket, which was split into two, even Chowra, such islands were affected greatly. And I can only guess because I had not seen the tsunami, but the after effects after the tsunami I have seen. One photograph I had taken by helicopter when I had gone there as a committee member, then the government had provided us a helicopter to cover the entire area as quick as possible. So I've taken a photograph that a tanker full of 37,000 liters of diesel, which was fixed on the surface by cement and everything fixed, in Nicobar, in Malacca village, that was uprooted. and it rolled down more than half a kilometer inside the jungle. One can imagine the force of the tsunami. But Nicobar is a flat island. There it created devastation. Devastation simply. In Great Nicobar, it didn't do like that because Great Nicobar rugged and hilly. So those who are the coast dwellers, and in Nicobar, it is always Nicobar or any of the Nicobar Islands. They are the coast dwellers always. If the forest is on the left, then sea must be on the right, and vice versa. So they were great damage it had done. But then how could the whole of Andaman is rugged and hilly and hills and small population living inside the forest and hunting and gathering. So what has happened along the shore? Of course, it did not affect them. So it was absolutely wrong to think that they had. This sort of news was there, very much there. Even some newspapers also interviewed me for that earlier.
Yeah, understandable. So what are you currently working on in terms of research?
What
is your current research on? What are you currently doing? Are you working on another book or?
Yes, very much. I'm engaged in a number of works now. And especially I'm interested in theory. And I tell you, all the theories in anthropology, I'm now particularly talking as an anthropologist about my discipline.
Yeah.
All the theories in anthropology have emerged out of the study of only such isolated communities.
Okay.
Be it Malinowski or Radcliffe Brown, Evans Pritchard, or in America, Frank Boas, Margaret Mead, Ruth Benedict, and all these things. So all the theories are but the products of the studies of such isolated communities, which during the period of exploration, come colonization, I say exploration, come colonization in the 17th, 18th century, etc. These newly discovered lands, after Columbus discovered in 1492 the New World America, there was a scramble in Europe among some countries to discover new lands and colonize. And new lands were discovered. Indigenous people of those lands, they came into notice. And their culture was in contrast with the European culture. Just imagine the 17th, 18th century European culture, particularly the culture of the British, because British had the greatest empire. They had discovered more lands from Australia to Canada, in between so many countries they ruled over. So Britishers were the most successful, I can say, colonizers than the French or the Spanish, of course, Spanish in South America, Latin America, etc. But anyway, so all the theories, evolutionism, diffusionism, structuralism, structural functionalism, culture personality. I've written a book on anthropological thought that is shortly going to be published. They all emerged after the study of such a culture. At the same time, any theory is only because of the similarities and differences between cultures. Why there is similarity and why there is difference. This is what is the causal explanation of the similarities and differences between cultures. Why the isolated communities have such culture, why the Europeans have such culture. So all the theories are also but the product, you can say, of the similarities and causal explanation of the similarities and differences between culture. Having said this, I consider personally that India happens to be the best laboratory for all the branches of anthropological research. Unfortunately, this has not been realized. Because as far as variety of cultures is concerned,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
India, I've written in several of my articles that as far as variety of cultures in India is concerned, perhaps it would be next only to the continent of Africa, which has got 54 nations. India is one nation. As far as variety of cultures is concerned, and as far as its antiquity, I have very plausible explanations to say it is next to none. I'm trying to do my latest work is going on in two things. One is I've called it a spiral theory of unity and diversity in India.
Mm-hmm.
Spiral theory. In spite of all these diversities and varieties, there is a unity also. This is true. Not only political unity in India was done by the Britishers, and when the Britishers left, the India and Pakistan politically they made two countries. Okay, so I'm not talking about the political unity,
Right.
but cultural unity. Cultural unity. So, in spite of so much of cultural diversity, there is absolutely cultural unity from Kashmir to Cape Kamari, and from Rajasthan to the Meghalaya. That is there. That I have a methodology on which I have been examining, and I would like to prove that how this unity, in spite of its diversity, is there. Second thing is, I think out of 9 ancient civilizations, 3 in Europe, 3 in Asia, 1 in Africa, 1 in North America, Mexico, and 1 in South America, Inca civilization, Maya civilization, Mexico, Inca civilization, South America, and China. These are 9 ancient civilizations that are recognized. Okay. Only 2 civilizations are such, where even today you find the cultural traditions perpetuating in the present day population. China and India. More so in India. The cultural traditions of thousands and thousands, even in the today's population, you just move to any village or move to any pilgrim center, you find the things are still perpetuating. Otherwise, if you want to know about the culture of the other ancient civilizations, you have to find it in their ruins or in the annals of history, you will find. But here it can still be the past, present, So, what is that mechanism through which such a perpetuation of cultural traditions has been taking place in India still to this day? That mechanism I've been trying to answer, that this is the mechanism because of which the traditions of the ancient thousands of years is still perpetuating in the population of India. These are the 2 things which I personally have been trying to do, and I hope to do in a few years from now. I'll surely try to complete it. This is my work, I tell you.
There's so much history in India, and it's so ancient. It's a pretty fascinating place. What is the best way for people to read your books and find them and your articles and your future books? What's the best place for people around the world to get access to your research? Amazon?
Well, Amazon.
Yes. Yeah.
See, this book, The Routledge, it's been published in New York, and this is the same book for South Asia,
Yeah.
only for South Asia, because its price is very much rupees in Indian currency. It is 15,000, and this is only 1,000. Same book, absolutely same. But this they have written also. This is only for sale in South Asia. They have given the name of the countries also, and this they call it Euro-American edition. They call
Okay.
it. So Amazon, you can get it. This is 1,000 only. This is more than that. This is the complimentary copies that they have sent to me.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Moreover, my journal is very important. The Oriental Anthropology.
Yes.
I don't have copy. I don't have here the copy of it. I would have shown you. That is being published by the Sage publication, and for last 22 years, I have been editing it. So there also, from all over the world, articles are sent to me, and then we do all sorts of review work and then publish it.
Perfect.
So that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast to share all your knowledge about anthropology in India and all the tribes there. It's really fascinating, and I really appreciate it. So